Hello and welcome back. We are lesson 9, clearing the past of obstacles. This is call 4 in your client's journey. So by now you have gotten to experience working with your scholarship clients. You're gaining more confidence in your skill as a coach. Hopefully you're starting to see some shifts happening within your clients' lives and in your own self too, because you're really starting to own yourself as a coach and the skill that you're gaining. So take time. I'm going to make this homework actually. Let me write this down because I'm going to add it to your homework list here. It's so important to celebrate yourself and the journey that you're taking. And I don't think that we take enough time to really just celebrate in the ways that you never would have normally celebrated. That's what a celebration is, right? It's something you wouldn't normally do. So by celebration, I mean doing something that is so out of your normal box that has you honoring yourself and your value, honoring the journey that you've been on, honoring your own self-worth and the journeys that you're taking others on. It's such a key part of the foundation to this work that you're taking time to celebrate and have fun and honor your own value and hard work that you've been putting into this. So I'm making this homework. And I'd love if you would jump on the Facebook group and share, like, what is it that you're deciding to do at this point in your journey to celebrate you and your growth and your clients' growth? I want to hear what those things are. An example for me is I took a balloon ride. You know, my Sovereign Rising Entrepreneur group is all about rising into your sovereignty, the prestige energy that it takes to be massively successful and step into the 5th dimensional realm, which is all about everything that you desire already exists. You don't have to work hard to get there, because that you already exist within that realm. And this is what you're taking your client through this journey. So in that group, I was sharing about my balloon rise, which is literally a rise up into the air, which is one reason why I chose to do it. Secondly, it's because it scares the shit out of me. I'm afraid of heights. And I wanted to celebrate in a way that celebrates embracing the fears. So that's what I chose to do. And it was so much freaking fun, like so fun, so peaceful. And I was really, really scared up to the point where I put my foot over the basket and, like, you know, was in the balloon, and I'm looking up and was like, whoa, this is insane, so fun. So you don't have to go that extravagant. I'm just talking about something that celebrates you. Honor this momentous event and time in your journey. Okay, enough of that. Let's jump into call 4 for your client, clearing the past of obstacles. I know you know how important it is to not bring all the baggage from our past into our present lives. And it's just the way that we are built in the brain, the whole amygdala part that you've learned, to bring all that passion into our present. And in doing so, it's really challenging to create a future that's free from the past. So in this call, you are really supporting the client in being able to just, like, drop all of that past baggage, clear the way for their future to be wide open for all the desires and possibilities that they want in their life. Now, this isn't the end all be all, okay? That it's the beginning part of it being the end all be all for them to powerfully step into their true self without the human baggage. Okay, so have your notes with you, printed out or up on your screen so that you can take notes as we go along here. Also have the client handouts with you as well so that you can take a look at what your client's handout is going to look like as you're guiding them through this conversation. Okay, so within call 4, the client will be clearing their future of their past. This call allows the client and you as the coach to start connecting pieces that you have been coaching on. Preparing for the call. You should have a pre-call form from the previous 2 weeks from client, homework from call 3, note paper, and your client file. Remember to be grounded prior to your call. Now, before I get into the segments, I just want to say I recently had a VIP day with a client who actually is going through this training program, but she decided to do one-on-one coaching with me, my 6-month one-on-one coaching program. And included in that is a full 8-hour VIP day where we basically, she's treated like a VIP client because she is. And we just laser focus in on her and her business and her skill as a coach for 8 hours, total deep dive. So we were actually looking at her note taking. So this is why I'm bringing this up, because you're going to have a different way of taking notes than someone else does, right? And this particular client is very meticulous and wants to make sure that she captures everything so that when she comes back to the client for their next call, she's got her notes totally set up. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, okay? There is a challenge with it though. One is what she was finding was that she really was so intent on taking so many notes that actually when she went back to look at her notes, they didn't make sense. Which is funny or ironic because she was intently trying to take as many notes as possible. Yet when she went back to look at the notes, they just didn't make sense. Another thing that's a challenge with this is when you're so focused on note taking, then you're not truly being present to the client or your own intuition, because there's this interference of the mind going, wait, I need to make sure I take all these notes so I can remember what's going on. This is where you just need to trust and download or channel, which means that you are listening to your higher self. When I say channel, I don't necessarily mean that, you're listening to some spirit or angel guide that's telling you something so that you can share it with the client. Channeling just simply means you're listening or tuning in to your higher self, which is your own intuition, which is the skill that you've been honing in on throughout this journey. That's all. And when you're channeling or getting these downloads, it's information that is specific to that client. And you want to be sharing that while incorporating the structure of whatever specific call you are on. And in order to do that, if you are intent on taking notes, it's challenging to be listening at that level. I hope that makes sense. Your note-taking one, I think I've said this before, but I'm going to say it again. Don't do it on the computer. Energetically, it takes away from you being able to really tap into the downloads that you're receiving, your own intuition. Why? Because there's technology involved, it's just a different energy. And it creates a disconnection. That's why I recommend you do written notes. Now, I believe I've shown you guys my note-taking before. It's really just key pieces. So for example, in this call, we're going to go through don't wants. You'll see what I mean by that as we go through the call. So I don't keep the list of every don't want that the client shares with me. I just put in my notes, don't want complete. That way I know, okay, we did the don't wants. I don't need to go back and do that. I didn't have to like intently write every single little thing they were saying. It was just, well, for don't wants, you kind of do want to do this. So that was a bad example, but it's not like verbatim every single word that the client is saying that is going on the notes, okay? It's just the key pieces and key things that you've talked about. Another example would be, let's say that a client is really struggling to feel their emotions, and you decide that introducing grieving is a really important part to the client being able to heal, transform, alchemize energy, whatever you want to call it. Like you decide that's a very important conversation you want to have with the client. Well, grieving is included in the healing formula, which doesn't show up until about lesson, it's called 8, I believe. So that's like lesson 14 or so for you. So it's later on in the journey. But you might be getting a download saying, I need to tell this person about grieving right now. So in your notes, all you would do is put grieving discussed, or 5 phases of grieving discussed. That's it. Like that's the topic. That way you know when it comes time to actually talk about the healing formula, you've already covered the grieving and you remember that or know that because you put it in your notes. Just one simple thing, grieving discussed on those note paper. So I challenge you, and this is what I did for this client. I'm challenging you, I challenged her to just take written notes, handwriting, and only the key pieces that you are discussing with the client. Or you can actually use the client handouts themselves so that you know you're going through each segment with the client. Like you could also do it that way too to help you structure it better. All in all, what I want you to walk away from this conversation with is that you don't want to take away from your intuitive connection to your higher self by trying to take down too many notes and everything that the client is saying. Take just big topic conversations, write down the bullet point of that on your notes, and then leave 15 to 20 minutes after your coaching call to go back over the notes and make sure that you did jot down everything that you wanted to or covered. That way you can remember what you've already gone through with the client, okay? So if you're doing typing notes, I challenge you to do written notes and just focus in on the key topics, okay? Schedule 15 to 20 minutes after your call to go back over your notes and make sure they're totally clear for you. All right, awesome. So there are 9 segments to this call 4. Always 1, 2, and 3 are always the same. You're going to create trust and rapport. You're going to go over the pre-call form. You're going to review the homework from call 3. Segment 4 is the truth of the past. 5 is distractions or don't wants. 6 is memory storage. 7 is clearing the past. 8 is homework. And 9 is the value of the call. So I am actually going to skip segment 1 and 2. Reason being, I think we've gone through this enough times that you understand what it is that you're doing in both of those segments, especially number 1. You're just really creating that safe zone, right? The open and willing space that your client needs to be in for these calls. So segment 2, as you know, the pre-call is such an important part, and you're focusing more within the successes. And always asking the question, is there anything else that you want to go over with me before we move on, right? So that they can share with you anything that they are very intent on sharing with you. Because if they don't share that with you, you may lose them, or they may get distracted because they're still over there thinking about, oh, I didn't get to share with her that piece or him that piece, kind of thing, right? Now, if you're still having challenges with pre-call or you have questions, then ask me during our one-on-one time, or of course, get on Facebook and ask the question there. All right, so jumping into segment 3, review homework from call 3. The purpose of this segment is to go over all the other homework items given. Values, what did they notice? What came up for them around their values? What was life like, whether in or out of alignment with values? What were the choices they noticed when asking themselves, what choice or choices could I make to help me stay in alignment? Did they take action based upon those choices? If yes or no, why or why not? And any other homework you gave them. Okay, so all the homework was around the values pieces, or piece. So you're really just focusing in on what happened, what was their awareness, what was their experience of their circumstances and their life in being observant of their values in or out of alignment with those core values. Now, what I tend to notice here is that, remember how we talked about the value isn't necessarily like the specific thing, but the essence or experience of the value. So for example, if freedom is the core value, and let's say that in their job, they don't feel free, that in order to get in alignment with that core value doesn't mean that they quit their job, because that's the only way they see how freedom is going to be experienced. That's not what we're talking about, being in alignment with that core value. What we're talking about is that how are they experiencing freedom in that job? How can they bring that sense of freedom as their core value in that job? Now, it may take actually quitting, okay? But we're not saying that that's how you create or honor or be in alignment with these core values. It's the experience of it. Do you follow me there? And that's what you're really looking for in this homework. Were they able to experience the sense of the core values in alignment? Because that's what in alignment means. Now, if they're out of alignment, of course, the experience is going to be like, yep, I was totally in an argument with my husband the entire time. He did something really terrible, and I did not feel belonging, acceptance, love, trust, freedom, whatever their core values are. So they were noticing they were totally out of alignment and couldn't figure out how to get themselves in alignment. Now, if that's an example of like, they noticed they were out of alignment the whole time, this is where you want to focus in on the choices piece of the homework, because it's in the choices that they make or don't make that's going to make the difference in them having a life that is fulfilling, that they completely love, that is healed, that is transformed, right? So it's in the choices. Like, that's the part that I really want you honing in on in this homework piece. So if they were out of alignment, using this example of like they were in an argument with their husband the entire time, what was the choices that they were making? I mean, that one's kind of obvious, but you're still asking so that they can clearly see it. I was choosing to ignore him. I was choosing to stay angry. I was choosing to be bitter. I was choosing to try and get him to see my side. I was choosing to punish him for what he did. All right. um, so with that, you're listening to your intuition for the next questions to be asking, right? Like if that were an example of what was going on with the client for me, I would be like, okay, why? That's what my intuition's, kicking in right now, is going, why would you have chosen that? What was behind that choice? Because clearly you were choosing to stay out of alignment. So why? That's where I go with the intuition. Now remember, why isn't always the best question to start with to get deeper into your coaching, to get deeper into the core of what's going on, right? Because the why could set them off and close them down from the open and willing place that we need them to be in. So you're starting your questioning off with what or how. So a why question is where my intuition's going. Why did you choose to punish your husband by not talking to him for 2 weeks, knowing that you were out of alignment with your core values? Instead of asking why, I'm going to formulate a what or a how question. So the what question might be something like, so what had you decide to do that? What had you choose to punish him instead of actually talking about it? How did that end up working out for you? There's a how question. How for the why they would have chosen that. Yeah, how questions doesn't seem to fit here. But hey, if you can think of one, awesome, go with it. But one's not coming up and it doesn't seem to fit. So the how might come after you ask the what question. And of course, if you feel like you need the why, go there. Fully go there. All right. Did they take action based on the choices? Yes or no? Why or why not? This is important because they're learning to trust their intuition, right? Like that's a big part of the values being their guiding system. Not only does it hold the foundation of life for them, it's like their life force foundation, right? But it's also, what came up? Sorry, let me back up for a moment. I believe we talked about like values being a part of like healthy boundaries. They're standards that need to be honored. So when those standards are not honored, not only is your foundation not in place, but you are also devaluing yourself, or they are devaluing their self and their own worth. In the fear archetypes that I've talked about in the Facebook group or other lives that I've done, not necessarily in this training, but the archetypes are the fear voices, the victim, the saboteur, the prostitute, and the child. Those are the 4 fear archetypes, right? When someone is not honoring their healthy boundary or standard or core value, they are in a place of prostitution. That is the fear archetype that is running their life. Prostituting for the sake of receiving some kind of validation, safety, or security. So using that same example of like the wife not talking to the husband and punishing him, well, what she was doing and not following her own intuition of like, I'm punishing him. I know I'm doing it. I know I'm out of alignment with my core values. I know I should be having a truth conversation with him, but I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Why? Because I want to punish him. Like right there, she just prostituted herself because of that, energetically. That's what's happening. Because there is an underlying fear. There's an underlying fear to why she didn't have the conversation or whatever the situation may be. So that's really what you're looking for in this yes or no, why or why not. Did they take action based upon their choices? Is you're looking for that fear-based thing that stopped them from following their own intuition, which is such a key, important part to living a, again, transformed, healed, joyful, fulfilled life. They have to begin to not only listen to their intuition, but act upon it. And this right here is where you are truly supporting them to be able to do that. And you have to uncover the fear. It could also be shame or guilt. Those are the three blockers, yes? Fear, shame, or guilt that stopped them from following through to the choice that they know they should have made to get into alignment. Now, that's if they went down the whole, out of alignment path. If they went down the whole in alignment path, then what you're doing is like fully celebrating them, but you're still asking the same questions. So you were in alignment with your core values. That's awesome, because you had an argument with your husband and you saw you were out of alignment, and immediately you recognized that you felt no sense of freedom, joy, love, trust, whatever their values are, and you're actually saying them to the client. Okay, you're actually saying them to the client, and you're celebrating that. Like, that's amazing that you did that. What choice or choices did you make to get into alignment? Well, I chose to tell my husband that I was clearly out of alignment with my core values through this argument, and it's because of blah, 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 is what I told him. Awesome. So you're still uncovering what choice or choices they made so that they can clearly see the pathway or connect the dots of what had them really be in alignment with those core values. Okay? And for sure, celebrate. Now, at this point, if they went down the path of being in alignment with their core values, you've talked about the choice or choices they've made, you can actually go back to the homework and hone in on the successes and ask them about the successes piece here. Because what you want them noticing is that in their successes, they had them because they were in alignment with their core values. They were making choices based upon those core values. They weren't prostituting themselves. They were actually being a sovereign in their life. Okay, so you could go back to like, well, the success that you shared about X, did you have a sense of freedom in that? Oh yeah, for sure. Did you have a sense of aliveness, a sense of trust? Again, you're going through their core values so that they can connect the dot also to the successes of like, wow, of course you had those successes. Why? Your foundation was in place because you were honoring your core values in alignment completely. You can do the same for out of alignment in the pre-call form, going back to their obstacles. So connect those dots too. In this whole obstacle of blank, did you have an experience of freedom? Well, no. Was there a sense or experience of aliveness? Definitely not. Was there a sense or blah, blah? Okay, so you're going through the values there and they're connecting the dots that, yeah, of course, these obstacles were created because you were clearly out of alignment. Now, you've already talked about why or why not, but you could ask again, why were you out of alignment? Well, because I didn't make the choice to have the conversation with my husband. I chose to continue punishing him. Cool. How's that working out for you? What happens when you continue going down that same path? Is that what you want? All right. So let's find out what was underneath that. if you haven't already done so. So connect it back to the pre-call form, their specific successes and obstacles that they wrote about. Okay, and then of course, always finish up this segment by, if you did give other homework, like we did have also to look at other circumstances again, now that they have further understanding around, they create their circumstances based upon how they relate to themselves. So you may have already covered that by going through the in alignment, out of alignment, because they're most likely sharing specific circumstances. But if you haven't covered that, then for sure make sure you do, so you keep the conversation about their relationship with themselves is what is creating and impacting their circumstances and relationships. And honoring their core values supports them in having a healthy relationship with themselves, which then of course creates and impacts circumstances that are amazing rather than hardships. Okay. We are shifting into segment 4, the truth of the past. This is a fun segment because it's something that I believe we all intuitively know but forget. Like, we just tend to forget this piece, and it's so important that we remember. So overall, what this segment is about seeing that their past is, and the perception of their past is what formed their relationship with themselves. So that's what this whole equation here is about. Past perception equals relating to self or relationship with self. That's the formula. The purpose of this segment is to get to the truth of the past, is for them to truly understand the truth of the past, not what they think the past is. So, step 1, you're going to clarify the past. Ways to create understanding so that there is clarity on the past. What is the past? Where does the past come from? Step 2, what is real? The purpose here is to create the distinction of what is real and what is illusion. Is the past real? Note, whatever they say, it doesn't matter which way they go. Most people will say, yes, it is real. You still continue on to the next question. How do you know it is real or not real based upon what they said to the above section? Allow them to answer and move to step 3. Step 3, share example. Purpose here is for them to see that an example that they carry with them today is an illusion or interpretation of what happened in the past, not what really happened. I want to say that again because I feel like there's that language. Purpose here is for them to see an example that what they carry with them today is an illusion or interpretation of what happened in the past, not the reality of what happened. Share example that will allow them to see this. Okay, let me share an example with you. Let's say that there is a car accident. 40 different people witnessed the car accident. An officer wants to get an exact account of what happened. How many stories, interpretations, or meanings does the officer get? What do you think? Note, most people say 40. Yes. Why? Note, the answer here usually varies. Whatever they share is perfect, as we are looking to start to distinguish between what is real and what is perception. The answer is because we all have different perceptions and interpretations of what is happening. Here is the aha moment for most. than what really has happened. In this example of the car accident, what really happened? Allow them to answer. Note, clients may get stuck with this one, as ego's job is to complicate things and keep itself in a state of illusionary identity. Because of this, you may need to guide them on answering this question. This actually may be one of the first moments they can release the ego and be presently connected to being in an awake state. So what really happened? There was a car accident. Anything beyond that point is story or interpretation. Step 4, clarify again. The purpose here is to really clarify that the past is the perception which forms how we relate to self today. I'm actually going to stop there, okay? Because I feel like if we get into step 4, we might get confused without going over step 1, 2, and 3 first. So I want to go over step 1, 2, and 3 with you before we keep going. Okay, so step 1 is you're clarifying the past. So this is just really easy here. You're asking them, what is the past? And where does the past come from? Whatever they say, perfect. Just move on to the next step, which is asking them if the past is real. Now, again, whatever they say, it really doesn't matter because you're starting to create the distinction. You're starting to have them really see that what they thought was real really isn't. Now, most people, when I ask this question, is the past real? They say yes. The other question in step 1 of like, what is the past? You get all sorts of different answers with that one. It's stuff that happened to me. It's things experiences I've been through. Where does the past come from? Well, it comes from, that one again, just across the board, what people say. But most of the time, the question in step 2 of is the past real, you'll get people saying, yes, it is real. So then you're finding out more. How do you know it's real? If they said yes. Now, if they said it's not real, you're still asking the same question. How do you know it's not real? And you're really just listening for what they're saying here. You're using your coaching formula by acknowledging them, because there really is no right or wrong answer to this. There is, in a sense, because we're redirecting them to the truth. But there is no right or wrong with where they're starting at in this conversation, okay? So acknowledge them, whatever they say, to it's real or not real. So, okay, yeah, I get why you say it's real. Let me share an example with you. And this is where you step into step 3. This example is what you want to share with everyone because it just makes so much sense and it really has them understand where you're going with this. So let me share an example with you. Let's say that there's a car accident. 40 different people witnessed the car accident. An officer wants to get an exact account of exactly what happened. So they ask all 40 people, how many stories, interpretations, or meanings do you think that officer will get from all those 40 people? Now, most people here do say 40. And then you're just acknowledging, yes. How come? Why? Why would that officer get 40 different stories? Now, here people have all sorts of answers for that too. But you need to hone in on the question, what really happened in this example of the car accident? And it's funny, some people really just can see clearly and be like, well, there was a car accident. And some people just will make up all sorts of shit like, well, the person was, playing with their radio and they looked up and then hit another car. Or it's funny how they'll just like make stuff up based upon their own experiences of accidents they've either witnessed or been in themselves. Your job is to help them see the truth by simplifying, because ego will just want to overcomplicate this question. What really happened in this example. You are wanting to get them to see that the past, or what they think their past is really not real, because what they've been making real is the story of what happened, not what really happened. So what really happened in this example, there was a car accident, period, done. That is it. Anything beyond that point is totally story or interpretation. Now, this is why I say, like, this is an aha moment for the client, because they've really just kind of get that, like, oh, there was a car accident. That's it? Period, done? None of the other, bullshit we were making up? No, not at all. It's just, period. There was a car accident. That's why it can be like such a mind-blowing aha moment, because it's like, wow, here I was thinking all this stuff that happened in my past meant all of this, and that's what was real, not what actually happened. Okay, I hope this is making sense. So if not, shoot me questions. I want to hear them. All right, now I'm going to come back to step 4. And this is clarifying again for the client. The purpose here is to really clarify that the past is the perception which forms how we relate to self today. So here's where you connect to relating to self and that whole formula. Past perception equals relate to self. The meaning that we gave to what happened formed our relationship to self. This comes from both the neocortex and the amygdala. How would that be? Allow them to answer as they should know from call 1. Share a personal example from your past that you gave meaning or perception to that has you relate to yourself the way that you do today. Connect to circumstances and relationships. Let's go over this step before we do step 5, because this is a big one here. Like, this is really important that they understand the past perception is what's formed their relationship with themselves. And of course, this relationship with themselves is creating and impacting all of their circumstances and relationships in their life. So it's really important that they get this. So you want to share a personal example. You also want them to, let's come to the handouts. I just want to reference the client handout for a moment. Okay, so this is under the truth of the past. You would want them to actually put that equation, past perception equals relate to self, or my relationship with myself. So have them actually write down that equation or formula on their handouts under the truth of the past. The other thing that you want them writing down there too is obviously that the past that they thought was real is not real. It's what actually happened, the specific thing that happened, like the car accident, not the meaning that they attached. When you share personal examples, it gives the client such a better visual and understanding. So I have 2 specific stories that I share with the client for this particular part. So you want to think of, like, I have 2, maybe you just come up with 1, but if you at least have 2, then you have ones to pull from, and you'll know which one is best to share with which client. So here's my personal example and how this looks like. So I'll connect it to relate to self. And I'll say, all right, so the meaning that you gave to what happened formed your relationship to yourself. Now, this comes from the neocortex and the amygdala. So how would that be? What do you think? And you let them answer. Whatever they say is perfect. You use your formula. Okay, great. Yeah, that's exactly it. Because the past memories get stored in the amygdala. But the memory is not what actually happened. It's the meaning, it's the story, it's the interpretation of what happened that got stored in the amygdala. And then your neocortex is trying to make sense of it, and it can't, which just reinforces the emotion that was attached to what happened and then stored in the amygdala again. So that's how it connects. Now, make sure in your handouts that you write this down. Your past perception of what happened in your past equals how you relate to yourself. So the past perception equals your relationship to yourself. Write that down in your handouts, right where it says the truth of the past. Now, at this point, you might want to check in with them and say, okay, so tell me what's coming up. Is this making sense? Yes, it is. Great. Let me hear it back. Okay, so you can make sure they're totally getting this. Now, you share your personal story. Okay, so let me just share a personal example for you. So this really really starts to integrate within you, and like ego can completely understand this because this is so important to your healing journey. So when I grew up in a household where Spanish was my first language. And in other languages, there are certain slang terms that you really can't translate into English. There was this slang term that my mother used to say all the time, and it was such an like everyday part of my life that I really didn't give, or what I thought give a lot of meaning to, because it was such an everyday occurrence. But I had actually given a lot of meaning to it. So here's the slang term that my mom would say: estúpida cabra de mi chica. Which means, if you were to translate that into English, stupid piece of shit. So I do remember the very first time that it kind of like woke me up, because it was so shocking that I remembered it. Like, I'd heard it my whole childhood, but this particular moment was like my wake up moment of, wow, okay. And I completely attached the meaning at that point. So I was running home from school. I had just drawn this picture at school and I was super proud of it, and I wanted to show my mom. So I'm running home and I run into the kitchen holding my picture up and I go, "Mommy." And in that moment, she said, "Estúpida cabra de mi chica," that slang term. And so in that moment, I totally like woke up to it and interpreted it in English as stupid piece of shit. That's how I translated it into English. So I not only gave it that meaning, I made it mean she was also talking specifically to me, that I'm worthless, that I'm good for nothing, that I'm a piece of shit. Like, that was the big one, that I'm a piece of shit, that I'm worth nothing. And that meaning is what formed my relationship with myself, or a way that I view, think, and feel about myself, right? There's your whole relate to self piece. So that's the meaning that I gave. I'm a stupid piece of shit. Okay, now, what really happened is that mom said, "Estúpida cabra de mi chica." Period. That is it. That is what really happened. Not the interpretation of, I'm a stupid piece of shit that's worthless and good for nothing and is dumb and retarded and all sorts of other things that I attached to. Is this making sense? I hope so. Let me share another example. When I was 8, my mom had just bought a brand new bedroom set. And it was like a big deal that she bought this bedroom set, because money was always like we don't have enough conversation in my household. So when she bought this bedroom set, it was like super big deal, and she for sure made sure that like my sister and I knew this. So I don't know why I thought this was a great idea, but I thought it was a fabulous idea in my 8-year-old brain to do my nails in my mom's room on her brand new nightstand. Now, this was back in the 80s when it was like, wood varnish style. So I have my nail polish remover and my nail polish right on the nightstand. And I end up knocking over the nail polish remover. It spills all over the nightstand and the varnish begins to bubble. I grab tissue to try and wipe it up. So not only was the varnish bubbling, but now there is tissue paper stuck. I mean, it was totally ruined. So you can imagine I got into some big trouble, big trouble. Now, here's the whole past meaning piece. So when I told my mom what I had done, she got so pissed off, she grabbed this plastic tennis racket that she used to hit my sister and I with. And she grabbed the tennis racket and she started to hit me on the right side of my ear. Like I can still remember the ringing that was happening in my ear as she was hitting me. Now, here's the meaning that I gave to what was happening. I am bad and I deserve to be punished. Now, it's not like I had that clear thought in the moment it was happening, but that's what was unconsciously happening. I was giving that meaning to this past experience, and I am bad and deserve to be punished became a way that I related to myself. That created many things in my life happening. But the truth is, what really happened, my mom hit me with the tennis racket. But that's not the part I carry with me. That's not the part the amygdala remembers. That's not the part the neocortex tries to understand. It's the meaning. I deserve to be punished and I'm bad. So at this point, you would want to check in with the client after you've shared your personal experience, like a personal share here. So, is this making sense? Are you seeing how the meaning that we gave to what happened is actually what we're carrying with us, not the reality? And we need to start to untangle your meaning, your story from what really happened, from the truth of things. We need to untangle all of that. Now, you also want to check in with them around, are they having some of their own past memories coming up as you're sharing your personal ones? I find that everyone always does. That's part of why you share your own personal experiences, because it immediately starts to open up the mind of the client to start thinking about their own shit. Always. So you're checking in with them. Are you having, as I'm sharing my own personal experience, like, are you thinking about your own past? And they're like, yeah. And you say, okay, great. I want to give you homework around this. And that's where you transition into step 5, giving them homework. So go over step 5. You want to give the homework here as you are in conversation about it. It's a natural transition. Number 1 homework is allow past memories to come up. Naturally, you will have past memories coming up. We opened up the consciousness to your past. However, the mind or ego has a tendency to push it down and not want to experience it. So we are asking in the homework to allow the past memory to come up. Number 2, write down in your journal. Number 3, look at the distinction between what happened and what meaning you gave to what happened. What is the perception versus what really happened? Okay, so in this first one, allowing the past memories to come up, you don't want to guide the client to like sit down and force themselves to think about their past. Okay, that's going to be against the grain, and there'll be some resistance. And that resistant place is not where this is going to be like majorly supportive to them. Okay, so it's about allowing the past memories to come up. They naturally will come up because we've opened up that door to their consciousness. Now, I do have people who are like, who say something like, I don't remember my past. I don't have a lot of memories from my past. So use your coaching formula. You're going to acknowledge them and be like, okay, I get that. Now you're going to insert new language or ask a question. So what is your intuition saying here? Mine would be saying like, well, why? Why do you feel that you don't have a lot of past memories? Or is it that you don't remember those past memories, or you have chosen to ignore them, deny them, stuff them down? Now, most likely it's that they've denied them and they've made that choice. So they've convinced themselves that they don't remember. Either way, you're still focusing them on being open and willing, which is the allowing part, to see their past memories. Now, you might have to create buy-in here. I would ask a question around, do you see the value of really creating the distinction between the meaning that has been dictating your relationship with yourself and what actually happened? Do you see value in knowing that? Get their buy-in. Like, heck yeah, that's valuable, because what's been unconsciously running your life, which is your relationship with yourself, is coming from a total misperception, not reality. Wouldn't you find that valuable? Heck yeah. And that'll support someone who's stuck in that whole story of I don't remember stuff from my past. That BS. Call them out on their bullshit. That is BS. We are programmed to remember. They've just programmed themselves to deny, shove down, step away. So all they need to do here is allow themselves to go there, and the past memory will be there. What you're asking them to do in step 2 in their journaling is to write down what happened, what they remember happening. So the whole personal share I just gave you is an example of what they would be writing down. I remember running home from school after having drawn a picture for my mom, and I was so excited to show her. And the moment I came in the door and went into the kitchen, I said, Mommy, and she said, Estúpida cabra de minha chica, in response. So they're just writing down what they remember happening. That's what they're doing in step 2 of the homework. 3, in looking at the distinction between what really happened and the meaning they gave to what happened. So in their journaling, after they've written down what happened, you're asking them to step back and see what really happened versus the story they gave to what happened. Now, this can be hard, especially if emotion is beginning to come up for the client. So you may need to talk about the emotion that can come up in remembering the experience and writing down the experience and looking at the difference between what happened and the perception. So if they have emotion that's coming up, one, it could cloud them being able to see the difference between story, perception, and reality. If that's so, tell them to just walk away from it. Like, don't try and decipher or create that distinction when they're in that emotional state. They walk away from it and allow themselves to go through the emotions, not to shove them down. So you may have to walk them through, like, this is the perfect moment to create healing around what happened in your past. And what you want to do is let yourself feel whatever emotions are coming up, knowing that it is perfectly safe, totally natural, and healthy, and needed. for your healing journey. So all you will do is if you need to cry, you go cry. If you need to yell and scream, you go yell and scream. And trust that the emotion will run its course. It's not going to take you into depression. It's not going to cause major anxiety or any of that. It will run its course and end quickly. There's actually scientific proof now that shows an emotion, its intensity only lasts for 60 seconds when you let yourself fully go there. 60 seconds, that's it, versus a lifetime of pain. Which do you choose? Now, if they're not like feeling too much emotion, then great. Have them look at the experience and decipher between what's the meaning they gave versus what really happened. What's the meaning they gave about themselves? Let's make it actually very specific. What meaning did you give to that experience they journaled about? Versus what really happened. All right, cool. Now you're going to move into segment 5. This is the fun part around this. You're going to create distractions. Sorry. We're just talking about all the distinctions. Distractions are the things that they actually don't want. So this is all about them getting distracted from their journey. And we're going to support them in not being distracted anymore. Okay. Okay, so the purpose of this segment is to acknowledge and clear out the things that cause distractions. These distractions are the very things that will stop them or pull them away from their healing transformative journey. So these distractions are what ego tries to use to keep them in the comfort zone, and we are just going to knock that out right now through this segment. Step 1. What gets in the way? Whenever we are on a journey, especially one of this importance, there will be things that the ego does to try and keep us in the comfort zone. One of the main ways ego does this is through creating distractions so that we can stay in the old programming, the old paradigm. Whenever we are on a journey in life, we have things that get in our way and tend to distract us from our journey. Has this ever happened to you? Give me an example. Note, the things that get in our way are the things that we don't want to have in life. Most likely, those things that distract you are the things that you don't want in life. Step 2, acknowledge. Note, you are now going to identify what acknowledgement creates. First, look at acknowledgement in general. When I say acknowledgement, what comes to mind? When you acknowledge something, what happens? Note, use an example of something they have accomplished. Acknowledgement does create space and freedom. Have them experience that feeling prior to moving on. Okay, I'm going to go over step 1 and 2 before we get to 3, because 3 is where it starts to get a little complicated and much more in depth. So let's just go back over step 1 and 2 for now. So in step 1, you're just letting them know that they are on this journey. They're on this transformative journey. And typically what happens when we're on a journey in life, especially one as important as healing or transformation, things will get in their way. And you're just checking in with them in that first step. Have they ever noticed that? Like they have this goal, they have this, if it's not journey, use the word goal that they want to accomplish or have intended to accomplish, and then something happens that distracts them. So you're just getting them to connect to an example of when that's happened in their life. Now, the next thing is for them to understand that those things that are getting in their way are actually things they don't want in their life. It's the don't wants that distract. So we're going to come back to that when we get to step 3. In step 2, you want to create this understanding that acknowledgement is such a key part to healing. And in order to not get distracted, we need to acknowledge the things that are blocking them, which are the things that they don't want. So one of the reasons why this step is in here is because you're going to be asking them in step 3 to say all the things that they don't want in their life. Now, it's funny because typically we think about all the things we do want, and we don't realize that all the things we don't want is unconsciously running in our head all the time. It's an unconscious conversation. And we think that, okay, the whole law of attraction thing says what you think about, you bring about. So people tend to think that you only have to think about positive things and things that you really want. Now, that is not true. That is not true, because through denying what's really running in your mind, there is resistance. And whatever you resist will persist. Why do you think acknowledgement is the first step to any kind of AA, recovery program, any of those kinds of things? It's because without the acknowledgement happening first, then none of the healing can actually take place. And that's exactly what we're looking for in this acknowledgement, that until they're willing to acknowledge that there's this unconscious conversation of all the things that they don't want in their life running in their mind all the time, that it's going to be very hard for them to continue their path of transformation. And we want to make it as easeful as possible for them. Yes? So that is what acknowledgement is doing. It's needed in order to stop the whole denial cycle and resistance to these things that they don't want, that they didn't even realize was running their life. That's what you're doing in the second step. So when I say acknowledgement, what comes to mind? When you acknowledge something, what happens? You don't necessarily need to be asking both those questions. You're just really honing in on them understanding the importance of acknowledgement and why it's a part of the healing journey. Use an example of something that you know they've already acknowledged throughout this journey and what the experience of that was for them, so that again they have that buy-in, they're really understanding the value, because you're about to do something really uncomfortable, which is asking them to fully acknowledge the things that they don't want to happen in their life. Okay? All right, moving on to step 3 then. Don't want exercise. Have them list out all the things that they don't want in life. We're going to do an exercise right now that will allow you to acknowledge all the things you don't want in life that keep you distracted and stuck. In your handouts, second page, you're going to make a list of everything you don't want in your life. You will be saying them out loud as well as writing them down. So, what don't you want in your life? Have them list out everything they don't want in life, verbally and written down. This is a one and only opportunity they are being given to free themselves by no longer hiding or giving unconscious energy to the things they don't want. Remember to have them state out loud as well as write them down. Have them dig. You may need to prompt them to dig deeper by giving them categories of life. You want to make sure they don't stop themselves by saying, I can't think of anything else. Well, yes, they can. They can't think of anything else because they are thinking about it. The most powerful energies are usually the uncovered ones. Categories to support them digging might be relationship, family, friends, work, health, money, fear. Have them get specific with fears, not just, I don't want to be afraid. The length of the list may vary, so keep prompting by asking, what else? When you get to the point that you have some really good deep don't wants, a page to a page and a half, then you can wrap up by asking anything else. Anything else is a subliminal way to tie it up and move on. What else actually takes them deeper? So little tip there or tool for you. Anything else keeps them, has them tie things up and just like, okay, no, that's great. But if you want them to keep going deeper, the question of what else and what else and what else keeps them going deeper and deeper. Okay, so before we jump into segment 6, let's go deeper into step 3. Okay, it's very important that they're stating out loud what they don't want, as well as writing it down for themselves. Now, you are also writing down what they are saying. And it's best, like earlier when I was talking about the notes, when I was saying, you know, you don't have to be specific and writing down every single word that the client says. In this exercise, you do. It's important that you write down exactly how they stated the don't want. What I find is that typically people start off superficially, and then you start getting like some really good, juicy, deep ones. You may need to prompt them with some examples. So you might need to say, okay, so we're going to do an exercise right now that is going to allow you to acknowledge all the things you don't want, because these things that you don't want are the things that are distracting you and they're pulling you away from your healing journey. So for example, I know that you don't want to keep punishing your husband. I also know that you don't want anything bad to ever happen to your kids. So you are going to say out loud, as well as writing down in your handouts on that second page, everything that you don't want. And this is an opportunity to like let it rip. No filters, none of that. I want to hear every single thing that you can think of right now that you don't want in your life. Ready? Go. Okay, that's how it would look. Now, there will be a point where they start to kind of, again, typically start superficially. They might get some deeper ones, but then you might find them like getting a little stuck. This is where you bring in different categories. So if I know that a client is struggling with their relationship with their dad or their mother, I will actually say, okay, so I'm going to help prompt you because there's more don't wants in there. So when I say the next thing, I want you to tell me if there's any don't wants that come up. Mom. Okay, and then let them like go down the path of thinking about, okay, what are all the things that I don't want when it comes to mom? So think of things that you know are trigger points for them. You actually need, in a way, to hijack them at this point so that we can get some more deeper don't wants that are lurking in the mind that they didn't even know was there, causing or creating some shit happening in their present life. When someone says like, I don't want to have fear, or I don't want to be afraid, that's great. Put it on the list. But we want them to get very specific. So fear of what? What don't you want to fear anymore? And it could be anything, like spiders, that's fine, okay? But of course we want the deeper, juicier ones, like I don't want to be afraid of abandonment. I don't want to fear being alone. I don't want to fear speaking up and using my voice. I don't want to fear sounding silly. I don't want to be stupid. I don't want to punish anyone. So it's like the list could just vary so greatly. Your job is just to write down and listen what they're saying so that you can keep prompting them with deeper ones that they may not have realized are there, causing them to be stuck. Now, these last two questions, what else? You keep asking them, what else? What else don't you want? And what else don't you want? Now, you don't have to do it every single time they say something. and then you respond with what else. That's, you don't need to do that every single time, but after like a couple, maybe throw that in there. Or when you start hearing them get like really silent and they're not thinking of as many, like that would also be a good time to like, okay, so what else? What else? Also acknowledge them as they're going through it. Saying something like, ooh, that's a good one. Yeah. Oh, wow, definitely a good one. Yes. Sometimes I have also gone back through my notes to see if there's stuff that they haven't said that I know needs to be included in the list. Okay. All right, make the list extensive. We have hundreds of things that we don't want. And we are actually thinking about them regularly. It's just, again, that we're not conscious to it. That's why acknowledging these are so important. Okay, once you've made your whole list with them and you've ended with anything else, and they may at that point say a few more, but because you're tying it up, rather than continuing to ask what else, you're continuing to say anything else coming up. And then finally they'll say like, no, I think that's it. Know that there will be more, but your list is pretty extensive and has the core juicy ones that we need. So sometimes I'll even say to people, there's actually more. However, we have like a good core list here. So let's go ahead and move on. And that's where you jump into segment 6. All right, so segment 6 is memory storage. In this segment, you will be looking at how the don't wants are stored within their memory. Step 1, how are these held? Now I would like us to see how you hold these. What is meant by this? We see things in pictures. It's the mind's eye or the third eye. We think in pictures. What I mean by that is that when you think about things, you have a picture in your mind of what that looks like. For example, the first thing they have on their don't want list. True? Note, wait for them to confirm that they can see a picture. Then have them close their eyes. Go ahead and close your eyes and notice the picture of the first thing on their list. It should be somewhere around you in space. And I want you to point to where you see that picture. Ask them to share with you where they are pointing. Usually they will either point in front or to their head. Either is perfect. Where are you pointing? Let's go over this step before we keep going. So once you have your don't want list, we are going to begin to shift the memory, okay, of where they're being stored so that we can clear. We're clearing their future of their past. So that's what you're doing in this first step. We do think in pictures. It is the mind's eye or the third eye. So typically in images, like there's Buddhist images where I'm sure you've seen a picture with an eye right in the center of the forehead. That's what that means. It's the mind's eye, the third eye, which means we think in pictures. So you're explaining to them that we not only think in thought, we think in pictures, and it's the third eye or the mind's eye. And then you have them think of something, that thing on their first, on the list, on their don't want list, and you have them picture it in their mind's eye. Then you're having them point to where they see that picture in space. This is a really important step so that you can do the rest of the exercise of clearing out this past. So let me just, like, again, role play it out so you see how this would look. Okay, really great list on your don't wants. Now what I want to do is we're actually going to see how you hold these. And what I mean by that is when you think about things, you think about them in pictures. It's actually called the third eye or the mind's eye. Have you ever heard of that before? Awesome. Yeah, it's right in the center of the forehead. So in your mind's eye, for example, picture the first thing on your list. You don't want to be angry. Now you have a picture in your mind of what being angry actually looks like, right? Yes, I do. Great. Now, I want you to go ahead and close your eyes and notice that picture of not wanting to be angry. Now, notice whatever picture comes up that you have around being angry and not wanting that. Now, do you see that picture? Like, give them a moment to see the picture. Yes, I do. Great. Now, that picture should be somewhere around you in space. And I want you to point to where you see that picture. It should, now, you can prompt someone. Let me step out of role play for a second. You can prompt someone if they're having trouble, like, I don't understand what you mean. Well, you should be seeing that picture somewhere around you in the space. Typically, people see the picture right in front of them, or they see it in their head. Either way, it's fine. I just want you to point to where you see that picture. So just trust that they're going to be able to see where the picture is. Like, it's natural. This is naturally what happens, okay? So let me step back into role play now. So I want you to go ahead and point to where you see that picture, and then let me know when you're pointing. Okay, I'm pointing. Great. Where are you pointing? Right out in front of me. Beautiful. Then you move on to step 2. Okay. If someone is saying that they see it in their head, you'll need to do step 2 a little differently. And I'll explain that once we read what we do in step 2. Step 2, where are these held? Next, have them divide the space in front of their face into quadrants so that there is a right top, a right bottom, left top, and left bottom. Let's divide the space in front of you into quadrants. There's going to be a right top and a right bottom, a left top and a left bottom. Now, what quadrant did that picture of you being angry move to? Once you've done that, move on to the next don't want on their list. Continue doing this with each don't want until the list is complete. Remember to acknowledge at times while they are doing this by saying good or yes. Okay, so let's just go back over this. Now, if they said that they were pointing in front of them, like it's straight out in front of them, this is what you'll follow this exactly as it's stated here. Great. We're going to now divide the space in front of you into quadrants, right top, right bottom, left top, left bottom. If someone is saying that they are pointing to their head and that's where they see the picture, what you'll need to do is an extra little step and have them bring the picture so it's straight out in front of them. So they'll have to imagine taking that picture and putting it out in front of them in the space in front of them. Once you have them do that, then you can move on to, okay, now that we've got that picture out of your head and it's in front of you, let's divide the space in front of you into quadrants, right top, right bottom, left top, left bottom. Now, where do you see that picture move to? So you're still using the first thing that on their list, like you had them visualize that first thing. You're still using that to now know what quadrant those pictures have moved into. Now, this is, you know, I've had coaches ask, not clients, but coaches who are training, like, what's the importance of this part? The importance of this part is really just for them to understand how we compartmentalize things. And these pictures that we have in our mind go into these compartments and we don't even realize that we're doing it. So it's more about them just recognizing, one, that they think in pictures, and two, that they're compartmentalizing these pictures. And it ends up structuring their present reality. We'll learn that in segment 7 next. So the other thing that's important to discuss here is that it doesn't matter where the pictures go quadrant-wise. There could be many in one side and like none in another side. That's fine. It doesn't really matter where the pictures go. That is not the intention of the whole quadrant pieces, okay? They're just getting to see the compartmentalization and allowing them to see also the images of things flying into these different quadrants. That's it, okay? So it doesn't matter where they go at this point. It really doesn't matter. All right, let's move on to segment 7. Clearing the past. Actually, hold on. I'm feeling like maybe doing an example here is important. Okay, so let's say that I have, yeah, I'm going to do an example. Okay, so I've had them pointing out in front of them. Let's go ahead and divide the space in front of you into quadrants. So there's going to be a right top, a right bottom, a left top, and a left bottom. Now, this picture I just had you look at, which is your first don't want to be angry. What quadrant did that picture move to? Is it in the right top, right bottom, left top, left bottom? Which quadrant do you see that picture in now? Right top. Great. How about the next thing on your list? Don't want to be afraid of using your voice. What quadrant do you see that picture in? Left top. Beautiful. Next, don't want to not be honest. What quadrant do you see that in? Left bottom. Now, at this point, after you've done like maybe 3 or 4, then you don't have to keep saying, what quadrant do you see that in? You can just move on to the next don't want, because they've already gotten the exercise. They understand it at this point. And how it's saying, like, remember to acknowledge at times, just every now and then, just remember to be like, good, yes, so that they know they're doing the exercise properly, if you will, okay? All right, now let's move on to segment 7, clearing the past. This exercise is to clear all the pictures / memories of the past. Note, at this point, they are in a meditative state. You want to keep them there and continue with their eyes closed, only listening to your voice. Still with your eyes closed, I want you to just listen to my voice. Before I get into step 1, let me just say that this meditative state that they're in, because you've had them have their eyes closed and they're picturing all the quadrants that all these don't wants are going, really the experience is, at this point, is almost like a wow, so heavy with all of the shit that they were carrying in their head. No wonder they were getting distracted. Like, that's energetically what's happening at this point. And so now you have them in that meditative state. You want to keep them there to do this next exercise. So there's no talking in between here. You're just saying, still with your eyes closed, just listen to my voice, and you immediately jump into this step 1 clearing exercise. Now, this step 1 clearing exercise, you want to practice, because you're going to be reading it at first. Like, I've been doing this for so long now that I have this memorized. So if you want to memorize it, awesome. But you can also read it. Now, the reason why I'm saying that you're going to want to practice this, because if it sounds like you're reading, then you're going to take them out of that meditative state. If you've got it memorized and you're saying it very just kind of like monotone because you have it memorized, then that's also going to pull them out of that meditative state. So you want to practice this so that it doesn't sound like you're either reading it or that you've memorized it. It's just coming out very naturally, and it's having them flow with the tone and frequency of your voice, so that they can stay in that mindset and continue to envision what you are asking them to envision. All right. So this is the meditative exercise that will clear them from the past. I'm going to read through the whole thing. Actually, if you want to play along right now and do this exercise for yourself, because all I'm doing is going to be reading what's here. So you may as well just like do it for yourself. Go ahead and close your eyes and do the exercise with me. All right, so let me come back. Still with your eyes closed, I want you to just listen to my voice. We have pictures for everything that has ever happened to us. And there are millions of these pictures. Now, some of these pictures from your past are small, some are large, some are moving, some are black and white, some are in color, some are very far away from you, and some are very close to you. And there are millions, if not billions, of these pictures that you are seeing right now that go from the most recent past, which is this conversation as we're having it, to the most distant past, which is the point of your conception. And even though you have these different pictures that you're seeing right now, like the big, small, moving, or color, you tend to have a major pattern on how you organize those pictures. And that organization is what is structuring your reality right now. It's as though you have a filing cabinet in your mind with all these pictures. And anytime something is presently occurring in your life, you pull out the file cabinet and search for the past memory and picture attached to that that matches the present circumstance. Now, where in relationship to your body do you see all of these pictures from your past? Are they in front of you? Are they to the side of you? Where are you seeing all of these pictures from your past? Wait for response. They should be seeing them in front of them, or in their head, or to the side of them. No matter what they say, it's completely fine. Do you know how an electromagnet works? Wait for response. They use them in wrecking yards to pick up all the fallen metal pieces of the wrecked cars. Once it is turned on, the magnet pulls all of the fallen pieces into a straight line. We are going to imagine that we have the largest electromagnet in the world. In a moment, I'm going to have you turn on that magnet. And when you do, it will pull all these pictures from your past into one straight line. Let me first say that the present is the space right in front of your face. So when you do turn on that magnet, you want the most recent picture, which is this conversation as we are having it, right in front of your face. And you want the most distant past, which is the point of your conception, all the way at the very end. Wherever else all the other pictures fall into place doesn't matter. Are you with me? Good. So when you turn on the magnet in a moment, all these pictures from your past you are seeing right now, right out in front of you, are going to stand straight up and go into one straight line. The most recent past, this conversation as we are having it, that picture is going to go right in front of you. And the most distant past, your conception, will be all the way at the very end. However else all the other pictures fall into place, doesn't matter. Wait for a response that they understand and then move on. Okay, great. Now, go ahead and turn on that magnet. Move all those pictures into one straight line, right out in front of your face. Once you have done so, let me know. Wait for them to let you know that it is done. If needed, ask them if they have done the above. What direction does the row go in? Wait for response. It should be straight out in front of them. And is the most recent past in front of your face? Wait for response. And is the most distant past way out at the very end? Wait for response. And is this row straight like an arrow? Yes. Wait for response. Now, I want you to take this row, keeping it straight like an arrow, and just rotate it. Keeping that distant past at the end, you're going to swing it around your head so that it stops right behind your head, and you're going to hold it right there. Hold that past directly behind your head. Swing that row behind you and hold it right there behind your head. Once you've done so, let me know. Wait for response. Where is your past? Wait for response. It should be behind them. Where is your future? Wait for response. It should be in front of them. And where are you? Wait for response. They should be right in the middle. Wonderful. Now take a deep breath and open your eyes. Okay, so essentially what we're doing is we're taking all those pictures that were out in front of them that we just did in the last segment, and now we are putting them into a straight line so that we can swing that line into the past behind them, behind their head. You're actually literally taking them through that process so that it stops directly behind them, okay? That's what we're doing to clear this space. Now, the important piece is that they understand that this conversation is their most recent past, and that picture needs to be like right in front of their face. The most distant past, the point of their conception, needs to be all the way at the very end, at the line. However else all the other pictures fall into place, doesn't matter, okay? Just those two points are the ones that matter. However else the other ones fall in, doesn't matter. Every time you give them a direction, you tell them to let you know when they've already done what you just asked them to do. That way you're clear on, now you keep moving, time to keep moving, okay? So once they put all those pictures into place, you're telling them to swing that row, keeping it straight like an arrow behind them, so that it stops directly behind their head. Now, what I have done too, I've actually started doing this and I'm enjoying it, is I'm also now, once they've swung the row behind their head, I ask them to imagine taking their hands behind their head and pushing that row, creating more space between their past and their present self. So you can add that in if you want to. Not needed, but if you want, there's a little extra piece for you. Now, when you get to this part of asking them, where is their past? They should be saying it's directly behind them because they just swung that whole row of their past behind them. In asking where is their future, it's all out in front of them. And where are they? They're right in between that past they just put behind them and their future that's right in front of them. They're right here in the middle. Once you ask them to take a deep breath and open their eyes, I mean, just the like, whew, it's really amazing. But again, every client is having a different experience of it, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the next step. Step 2, you're explaining what happened. So now you want to check in on what that experience was like for them and explain to them what was happening prior to the exercise. So what was that like for you? Allow them to respond. What happened? 1, their past was right in front of them, hence walking into their past while in the present and trying to create a different future. Note, this is for those that saw the pictures of the don't wants in front of them. 2, their past was so ingrained in their head that it was taking up all the space, conscious and unconscious, hence having the past show up in the present and dictate the future. Note, this is for those that saw the don't want pictures in their head. Examples to create relevancy. A computer having files open. I was trying to think if there was another one, but that's a great example to create relevancy. So let's go back over this step here before we keep moving. After they've done that whole exercise, as I was saying, like there's typically a sense of release that's happened. So you've had them open their eyes, and now you're checking in with them to see what the whole experience was like for them. So what was that like for you? Allow them to just respond. Now, once they've shared with you, this is when you're going to tell them what happened. So number 1, this is for those who, when you did the whole quadrant thing, saw the pictures out in front of them. That basically what was happening is that they were trying to create a future of things that they want, things that they desire. I don't need these. I don't know why I have those on. Things that are coming from a healing place, a transformative place. But they can't, because as they were literally stepping into their future, they were literally stepping into their past. Why? Because all those pictures was right out there in front of them. It's like, how can you create a different future if you keep stepping right back into your past, right? The second thing is for those who saw the pictures in their head rather than pointing out in front of them. They pointed to their head. So if it was that client, then you share, well, here's what happened. It was so in all your past was ingrained in your head and was taking up all this space consciously and unconsciously. So it was having your past show up in the present and dictating your future. Okay, so you share based upon whether the person saw or pointed to the picture right out in front of them or whether they saw it up in their head. Cool? All right. Now, this last part, example to create relevancy, you really don't need to do this, but it's something if you choose to, just to have them get like, imagine having all these files open on a computer, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, like we said millions if not billions of pictures. I mean, I guess it depends on how old someone is, but you know, if a computer has millions of files open, how well is that computer going to run? Yeah, not so good, right? So it's the same thing for us. They had all these files open in their computer, and every single time something was happening in their present, or they were trying to create a different future, it's like all those files were in the way. They couldn't see clearly. There wasn't space for anything new to come in. That's how you would share that relevancy. So they get like, oh, wow, yeah, that's enough of that, right? Okay. Step 3, put it to the test. Have them put to the test by going back to their don't wants and asking if they see them anymore. They should be gone, as they did just put them behind them. If anyone still does see something, it will not be what it was before, but a shadow picture. Do you see? Pick a don't want off their list. anymore. Note, you only need to do this for a few of the don't wants and then have them tear it up. Once they have seen that the pictures are no longer there, you will have them tear up the list. Now let's take this list and tear it up. As it's done, it's gone, it's in the past where it belongs. Discuss shadow pictures if needed. Okay, let's go over this step. So here what you're having them do is we really are going back to this don't want list, and we're actually putting the exercise we just did to the test. So pick something off their don't want list. It could be anything that was on there, and you're asking them, do you see it anymore? Now, if their response is yes, you do need to discuss shadow pictures. So here's essentially what a shadow picture is. It's like, you know, when you have a potted plant on the cement for a really long time, and then you decide you're going to move and you want to take that potted plant with you. So you physically move the potted plant. Now what's happened is, because it was on the cement for so long and the sun had been drenching it with its rays for so long, when you moved the pot, it created a shadow of where the pot once sat, because the sun kind of stained the cement, right? So picture that. That's exactly what happens. The pot is physically moved, yet there's a shadow of the image that was once there, of the physical thing that was once there. Even though it's not there anymore, there's still a shadow of where it once lived. Now, the key thing is that a shadow picture means that it is physically no longer there. The shadow remains, and you will be doing work on that. You will be doing shadow work in these next several calls with the client. I very rarely had to explain that to someone. So typically when I'm asking, do you see being afraid of using your voice anymore? The answer is no, because we have moved it. It's very rarely someone has said yes, in where I had to share that example of, okay, it's actually different than what it was before. If you really intently look, what's left is a shadow. It's called a shadow picture. Here's what I mean by that. You know, when you put a potted plant in your backyard on the cement and it sat there for a really long time, and then you decided to move it. Once you moved it, there was a shadow of where it once sat. Like, that's how you would share that, so that they get like, it's gone. It isn't there. You're just seeing a shadow of what was once there, but it is literally behind them where it belongs now. Okay, once you've done a couple of the don't wants, pick like 4 or 5 from their list and asking them, do you see blah, blah, blah anymore? Okay, how about do anymore? Or do you see blah, blah, blah anymore? Or bloop, bloop, bloop anymore? The answer will be no, because it's behind them. It's gone. At this point now, you want to say, great. So they're literally gone. Why? Because we put them behind you, and now you are clear of your past. So let's take this list and rip it up, and you rip up your list too. You have them rip up theirs, you rip up yours. Then you move on to step 4, look into the future. Have them look into the future and see, feel, and experience what is present now with the past behind them. If you look at your future now, what is there? Note, they will feel it is open, spacious. What they will see is nothing or gray, and what they will feel is relief or release. Okay? That's the feeling, that's the sensation. And when I ask someone, what do you see? Typically the answer is like nothing. It's wide open, and there is that gray color for some reason. Okay, and the feeling is that sense of relief or release, like, oh, okay, I can breathe now. Now that you have cleared their future from their past, you move on to step 5, create the future. Now that their future is wide open, they get to create their life vision 20 to 25 years from now. Now that your future is, and use the words they just shared with you from the above, it's time to create your future free from your past. The way that you will do this is to write your vision of your life 20 to 25 years from today. Note, make sure they understand that they are to write their vision as though it is present day, even though they are writing it for 20 to 25 years from now. Give an example. Okay, so let's go back over this step. They've got their wide open future now. They get to create what goes in it, not their past anymore. The past is no longer filling that space. So now we get to fill it with their true desires, with an openness, all the possibilities free from their past. And the way that they're going to create it is by writing the vision of their life 20 to 25 years from now. Now, that can seem like a lot. Sorry, I've got something that's tickling me. Especially if you have an older client, but the point is that you are pushing them to see that far out into the future. Now, you also do want them knowing that they're stating this in present tense rather than future tense. So instead of saying, I will be on the coast of Hawaii sipping my Mai Tai with my beautiful husband, and we've sold our businesses, so we were able to purchase this beautiful house. Like, you notice the whole I will be, that's not stating it in the present. It needs to be, I am sitting on the coast of Hawaii with my beautiful husband sipping Mai Tais, you know, whatever their vision is, but they're stating it as though it is present day. Okay, you can also give them some guidelines for this, like, you know, I'm a proponent of handwriting rather than typing. Energetically, there's something so much more powerful when you handwrite versus type. So you can, your choice if you want them to do that. You can also let them know the length of it doesn't matter. It's their vision, so they get to choose the length. But you want them getting detailed, not just giving like bullet points, okay? Like, have them really get into the experience of it, the taste, the feel, the sensation, all of it, so that it's like this living, breathing thing that they can experience as a reality. And if they're writing like that, then it's probably going to be a lot longer. So you should let them know, don't wait to write this until like the day before their next call. This is something they want to be working on in between their call so that they give it the time and attention that it deserves, right? Okay, segment 8, homework. In this segment, you want to ensure that the client understands the homework. So they have a couple of things here. Number 1 is to allow the past memories to come up. Naturally, the past will be coming up. We opened up the door to your past consciousness. However, the mind or ego has a tendency to want to push the memories away. So we are asking in the homework that you allow the past memories to come up. Part 2 of that is to write down in your journal what you remember happening in that past memory. Part 3 of that is to look at the distinction between what really happened and the meaning they gave to what happened. What is the perception versus the reality? Number 4 piece of homework is to write down their vision of their life 20 to 25 years from now in the present state. And any other homework you may have given them throughout the course. Okay. And our last segment, as always, is to complete with the value of the call. So asking them, what was the value of today? Woo! Okay, this was a long one, you guys. And it's pretty deep because there's a lot of meditative stuff. We're dealing with past programming and all of that. So if you have questions, you know what you need to do. Reach out, Facebook, on our personal one-on-one time, whatever that may be. Have fun with this. Trust yourself, trust your intuition, and I will see you for lesson 10. Bye.